you ever lie awake imagining a choice you didn't make and feel the slow, heavy ache of what if? Maybe it's the job you turned down, the apology you never said, or the trip you postponed. Moments that return not as facts but as a particular flavor of loss we call regret. This video asks a practical question. What if regret could be weighed, priced, and used like currency to guide better decisions? What if you could enter a marketplace in your mind, drop a yellow ticket on potential outcomes, and then choose in a way that minimizes the chronic regret your future self is likely to carry? The story of the market of regrets begins as a parable and ends as a toolbox you can use today. Imagine a town square transformed into an exchange where people bring imagined futures and trade yellow tickets that represent the weight of potential regret. Each ticket is stamped with two numbers, likelihood and sting. Vendors are not sellers of goods but narrators of possible lives. They offer brief scenarios. If you take this job, you might miss family dinners. And buyers bid by assigning yellow tickets according to how much they dread that future feeling. The auction outcome is not profit but clarity. Some futures demand many tickets and thus call for caution. Others are cheap and indicate low psychological cost. This imagined exchange maps onto a real psychological insight. Anticipated regret, the ability to forecast the negative emotion associated with a future choice, is a powerful predictor of wise behavior. Behavioral scientists have repeatedly found that people use anticipated emotions when making decisions. Sometimes anticipating regret steers us away from short-term gain toward long-term integrity. But anticipation is messy. Our effective forecasts are biased. We overestimate some pains and underestimate others, and uncertainty can make every outcome seem expensive. The market of regrets solves this by turning fuzzy intuition into a structured calculation you can practice. Here is the core framework, explained through simple metaphors and practical steps, and then a toolkit you can use immediately. First, the anatomy of regret. Think of regret as composed of three elements: probability, how likely is the outcome; magnitude, how damaging or painful would the outcome feel; and duration, how long would the sting last and how much would it shape your narrative. In the market, these translate to three ticket dimensions: chance, hurt, and persistence. Each is scored on a 0-100 scale. Multiply them to get a regret score that behaves like a price tag for a given scenario. Second, why this matters. Traditional decision-making often treats outcomes as neutral payoffs or immediate rewards. But humans are story-making animals. The way an outcome feels inside your life narrative, whether a quiet regret or a loud, enduring remorse, determines long-term well-being more than short-term utility. By pricing anticipated regret, you give ethical salience to decisions that otherwise hide behind rationalizations. Third, the regret calculator step by step. Step A, sketch the scenarios. For any tough decision, write three plausible outcomes: the optimistic, the likely, and the worst case. Be specific. Vagueness makes prices meaningless. Step B, estimate probability. For each scenario, ask, how likely is this? Assign a percentage from 0 to 100. Be realistic, not dramatic. Use base rates if you can. Past experiences, data, other stories. Step C, rate magnitude. Ask, if this happens, how much will it hurt on a scale of 0-100? Think of hurt as subjective suffering, loss of identity, relationships, health, or moral cost, not merely financial loss. Step D, estimate duration. Ask, will this be a one-night sting, a year-long shadow, or a life-altering wound? Convert to a 0-100 scale. Step E, compute the regret score, probability X, magnitude X, duration, normalize if desired. Use the resulting number as a yellow ticket price. Step F, compare across options and set thresholds. Decide in advance how many yellow tickets you're willing to expose yourself to for certain benefits. This prevents slippery rationalizations after the fact. Let's illustrate with a concrete example you probably recognize: saying no to a friend's request that would derail your work goals. Scenario 1, say yes. Probability you'll miss your deadline 60. Magnitude, career damage stress 40. Duration, weeks of recovery 30. Regret score =, 60 by 40 x 30 = 72,000. Scenario 2, say no gently. Probability of friendship strain 30, magnitude 20, duration 20. Regret score =, 30 up 20 x 20 = 12,000. The yellow ticket market suggests that the cost of saying yes is much higher in anticipated regret. The modest social discomfort of saying no is cheaper emotionally and temporally. Importantly, the calculator surfaces hidden asymmetries. where small frequent regrets accumulate into a chronic tax on well-being. But numbers are tools, not tyrants. Here are 4 practices to make this market actionable and ethically sound for everyday life. Practice 1. The mini auction. When a decision feels ambiguous, give yourself a time-bound mini auction. Invite one trusted friend or your journal to play the market vendor. Describe the scenario and ask, how many yellow tickets would you stake on this outcome? Hearing an external valuation often reveals the emotional magnitude you discount. Practice 2. The 72-hour price check. For major choices, sleep on the price. Recompute your regret score after 72 hours. If it rises, that's a sign your initial optimism was underpricing future regret. Practice 3. The regret budget. Allocate a monthly or annual regret budget. A maximum number of yellow tickets you're willing to spend on high-risk, high-reward choices. This gives you permission to take calculated gambles without spiraling into accumulated remorse. Practice 4. The moral auction for others. Use the market to evaluate systemic or ethical decisions. How many tickets would you place on a policy that benefits you now but harms a group long-term? This trains empathic forecasting and reduces selfish discounting. Now, several psychological caveats and how to handle them. First, affective forecasting errors. You may overestimate both the intensity and duration of future feelings. Counter this with historical correction. Ask, how did I actually feel after similar events in the past? Adjust probability and duration accordingly. Second, ambiguity aversion. If you can't estimate probabilities, the market pushes you to consider worst-case pricing, which can be paralyzing. Use a conservative default, for example 25% probability, only to avoid indecision, then refine with information. Third, moral license. The market can be used to justify selfish choices by cleverly underpricing social harms. Guard against this by including an otherness multiplier when outcomes affect other people, a conscious amplification of magnitude to reflect moral responsibility. The market of regrets also helps with long-term life design because chronic regret often arises from identity drift. Small, repeated choices that aggregated produce a life you vaguely resent. The calculator makes those micro-decisions visible by producing a ledger of small yellow ticket expenditures. Over a year, you can sum them and see whether your regret economy favors short thrills or long integrity. Visual tools amplify the method. Draw a regret graph with scenarios on the x-axis and regret scores on the y-axis. Use color to indicate social versus personal harm. Animate mini-auctions where tickets fall into buckets labeled growth, cost, and moral debt. For video, simulate the town market where crowds bid and the camera zooms into a single hand holding a stack of yellow tickets when a choice feels heavy. Use voiceover to translate the metaphor into the calculator steps. Finally, empathy is central. This technique is not a moral judgment machine, but a compassionate instrument. People make choices weighed by fatigue, survival needs, and limited information. The market of regrets honors that complexity by helping you anticipate and thereby reduce unnecessary suffering. It gives your future self a seat at the table, which is exactly what we all need more of. Before we close, a short decision ritual to practice tonight. Pick one minor choice you've postponed: replying to a message, making a doctor appointment, telling someone a truth. Sketch 2 scenarios: do, don't. Assign probability, magnitude, duration with rough numbers. Compute the regret scores and see which side demands fewer yellow tickets. Use that outcome not as an absolute edict, but as a compassionate nudge toward the path that minimizes lingering sorrow. That ritual trains your mind to weigh emotional costs as real currency and to steward a life with fewer small regrets that later become heavy burdens. If you found this market useful, try the calculator for 1 week and share the results in the comments. What surprised you about your yellow ticket spending? If this video helped you imagine regret as a usable guide rather than a haunting afterthought, like the video, share it with someone who overprices short-term comfort, and subscribe to Mind Unlocked for more practical toolkits that turn psychological insight into day-to-day design. Every like and subscription is another yellow ticket invested in a future with fewer needless regrets. And every share helps spread a kinder, wiser decision-making economy.